Thank you very much. And I thought this presentation would be an intellectual challenge, and I wasn't prepared for a technical, very practical challenge here. And I thank you for all the work you did, clearing the terrain here. And I could be very short and answer your question with a very blunt, yes, we are. But I want to be a bit more exhaustive and remain short. The subject I was asked to talk about is the European view on Tunisia today. Now, since I'm trying to keep to 10 minutes, I will concentrate to the German view on Tunisia today and put in some European bits and pieces. Speaking on behalf of only my country makes it also a little bit easier for me to be blunt, and I hope that might be conducive for the following discussion. I first of all want to congratulate CSID and you personally for this conference. This is something speakers always do when they go to conferences. I normally never do it because I think it's a waste of time. We're here because it's good, but this time I want to do it because I find that one of my strong impressions of Tunisia, after having arrived here no longer ago than last summer, is that it's a quite polarized society, and then maybe even more polarized political establishment. And what I think the country lacks, what the society lacks, are people and organizations who build bridges. And CSID definitely is one of the major bridge builders in the political establishment here, and I want to congratulate you for this very important work. If I try to answer the question, what is our view on Tunisia today, my very short answer would be that the situation is better than the mood. And now one could say, okay, if that's the case, let's just talk about the situation, talk about hard facts. But I think we would be missing something very important, because in the world we live today, with the importance of media, all different kinds of media, we all know, we have all come to learn that perceptions are realities. And that's why I think it is quite important to actually try and understand, at least that is the work we have been doing, try to understand why is the mood somewhat morose here in Tunisia. And I would very briefly simply say, I think there are good reasons for the mood to be morose, and let me just give you 3 short pointers. Number 1, there has been no socio-economic dividend paid by the revolution. People did the revolution to get jobs and have a professional perspective. That has not been the case since the revolution took place. Number 2, the security situation, I think, remains quite problematic, and there you have basically, to my understanding, 3 different layers. You have the jihadist Salafism, you have the more political violence, and I just want to name the leagues, of so-called leagues for the defense of the revolution, which many in the political establishment consider as a threat to the political climate in the country, and you have petty criminality, which we know in Europe is a quite general phenomenon in post-revolutionary states. So that is the second point I think one has to take into consideration to understand why the mood is somewhat morose. And point number 3, I already mentioned, I feel there is quite a strong polarization in society, and instead of trying to accentuate, instead of trying to reduce this polarization, I sometimes have the impression that politics, the political establishment, actually enhances them. And when I talk to Tunisians from all avenues of life, I have the impression that this is something they suffer from. They are longing for this famous Tunisian tolerance, and they do not find that reflected in the political debate of the country at the moment. So, this I would very briefly say are some of the elements which explain the mood. Now, we, as outside observers, have the privilege of having this bird's eye view on the situation. And me coming from Germany, I of course look at the country here in this post-revolutionary situation, having in mind the post-revolutionary situation in my own country, beginning of the 90s. And if I do this, actually, I realize we are not in 2013, we are in 1991, 2 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall. So I looked at a few newspapers from Germany from 1991, and I couldn't believe my eyes how morose the atmosphere was in reunified Germany. How much people were speaking about all the negative aspects and how little the freedom they had just conquered in a peaceful way was actually still appreciated. So I think it's very useful to read German papers from 1991 to understand the situation and the mood in Tunisia in 2013. And that brings me to my first point of why I make the case that the situation is better than the mood. The situation is better than the mood because you have to remember it has only been 2 years. And as you rightly pointed out, I think patience is a number one quality, and it's something which should emanate from the elite of this country, trying to make understand that this long-term positive change just takes time. Number two, on the economic front, I feel that Tunisia can be quite proud of the way it has been able to stabilize its economy under, we all know, very difficult circumstances for which we Europeans are to a large extent responsible, with the European economy slowing down. So despite this, and despite Tunisia's heavy economic orientation on Europe, the country has been able to stabilize its economy, and that I find also should not be underestimated. The third point is this very vibrant and strong civil society, which played an important role in the revolution, and which remains very vigilant, which is very active, and which I think is a very distinct feature of Tunisian society, another element which I think the country can be proud of. And next point would be the structure of Tunisian government, having a religious party and 2 secular parties. And I find it extremely encouraging that all 3 components of this coalition, and especially interlocutors from Enada, point out that this is a coalition not of necessity, but a coalition of strategic orientation. And I find it's extremely wise of the Enada party to say that even if we would have a sufficient number of representation in parliament, we would strive to have a coalition in order to avoid something we can see in Egypt, where the political divide is actually also 100% the divide between religious camp and the secular camp. This has been avoided in Tunisia due to the very visionary politics by a number of responsible personalities, and I think this is to a large extent underestimated as one of the recipes of success. And I hope that those politicians who have made this difficult path, for which they are often criticized in public, that democracy will reward them at a later point of time. And I would like to close the enumeration of the positive aspects with a very recent reference to the declaration of the new Prime Minister, Mr. Ali Larayet. I find that the very reduced number of high priorities of his government are right on track. These big 2 rendezvous avec l'histoire, which Tunisia has, finishing its constitution and having the first 3 elections to a regular parliament, I think it's totally right to concentrate on that, because when the history books are written in 50 years about this period of time, Nobody will be asking about is there more rubbish in the street or less, or have the price of this period will be judged with two questions. Did they get the constitution right, and were they able to put Tunisia on a solid democratic track? And that's why it's right to concentrate on these two points. For all of these reasons, we believe that Tunisia not only is the cradle of the Arab, shall we still use the word, or shall we say Arab awakening? It's becoming a bit complicated to talk about, find the right denomination, but about the spring, let's use the term because it is beautiful and the weather is very nice outside. We believe that Tunisia not only was the cradle of the Arab Spring, but it can become the beacon of this long-term process to follow if it gets these two big rendezvous this year right. And we are betting on the success. We have betted on the success from day number one after the revolution. Money is by far not everything, but it is a certain indicator of the importance you accord to developments. And let me tell you that my government has allocated €250 million to Tunisia for last year alone, and we will continue to do so in the future. Per capita, this is the highest sum we are spending for any country in the world, and this is not only Germany, this is done by many other European countries as well, and the European Union as a whole has dedicated €640 million for a 3-year period going from 2011 to 2013. So you see, we are trying to put our acts and our actions there where our words are, and we are betting on the success of this long trip Tunisia has embarked on, and we hope that together with our friends here, Tunisia will become this beacon of democracy, pluralism, tolerance, and freedom, which we all, I think, agree this region needs and deserves. Thank you.